What's up, everybody? I'm so excited. Dr. Cindy Howard is here to talk to us today, and I couldn't be more overjoyed. She's been here before, but she is the most energetic, enthusiastic, and probably hands down the funniest speaker in all of chiropractic. And I mean that with all of my heart. Dr. Jay Greenstein would absolutely agree with me. She brings the fun factor to everything that she does, definitely to education. And I'm so excited that she's here to present to us today. We've been talking about this has been the month that we've been featuring all the people who are going to be at FCA and FCA National. It was an accident, but it was great. And so we're wrapping it up with really the star of FCA. And if you show up to FCA in Miami or FCA National, you'll find out exactly why she's the star. So without further ado, Dr. Cindy Howard, you take it away.
Oh, Christy Hudson, thank you so much. And really, back at you, one of my favorite people on this planet. So I so appreciate you having me today. I do have to tell you that's a lot of pressure because this is not necessarily a funny subject today. So I don't know how many jokes we're going to crack, and especially because everybody's sort of out there, right? And I don't get that feedback. But that's okay. We'll do our best, and we're going to move through this in an entertaining way for sure. And please join us at FCA because I've dragged Christy into our program, and we're just going to have an absolute blast. So hope to see you all there as well. And thank you all for being here today and joining me on your lunch hour or your day off or whatever that winds up being. We're going to spend 50 plus minutes together. And then for those of you that are watching this later, I'm glad you finally had some time to sit down and check this stuff out. So today, when Christy and I were talking about what to present, we went back and forth over a couple different subjects. And one thing that I'm super, super passionate about is helping other doctors with the business aspect, if you will, of practice. And more importantly, really that communication piece of the business aspect, which is what we're going to talk about today. It's one of those places where I see, unfortunately, a lot of challenges and even some failures. And I think there's some really awesome, simple tools that you can put into your day at every single appointment to help improve patient compliance and patient adherence. And they are two different things. We'll talk about that in a second. And then really elevate your brilliance, right? So all of us out there, we're very smart. We're very good at what we do. And sometimes that doesn't always translate to the patient well enough that they follow through on our recommendations. And that's what this hour is really all about, is how to get patients to follow a set of recommendations, if you will, and then adhere to them to make a difference in their life. At the end, actually, next slide, you're going to see, let's just jump to that so that you have that. Oh, I got to click my little next button. We've got a little different setup here. The most important information on this slide is really just that top left-hand corner. So there's two pieces of information. Snap a picture of this or jot it down real quick. And that is my personal email and my personal cell phone number. And I provide both of those to you intentionally because I want to be a resource. If you have any questions at all or there's things that I can help you with, please let me know. We'll talk a little bit about what I do as a consultant near the end, but I want you to have access to that information. Please know if you email me, I get buried under emails, so I have a tendency to ignore people. Feel free to stalk me or say, hey, Dr. Cindy, pay attention to me in the subject line. But much easier is really to shoot me a text. And if you shoot me a text after today and say, hey, saw you on the webinar from Chiro Health USA, want to ask you a question, throw your name in the text box, and then I will get back to you probably much more quickly. And there you can just see there's a whole laundry list of things I do and I've done, and it gives you a little background. One of the things that I think is most important in my background, which has led me to the topic today, really has nothing to do with chiropractic as a whole at all. And that is really my background in sales. So I tell most doctors when I work with them on a consulting basis that there's lots of really smart, intelligent, fabulous doctors out there. And I'm certainly not knocking myself off the list. But when we talk about what elevates and what has allowed me to build a very successful practice by myself, it's really my sales background. So that's what I did prior to going back to chiropractic school. And there's a lot of little small techniques we're going to talk about today that are going to help you become either successful or more successful than you already are. So let's talk about the difference a little bit of these two words, because there is a difference and we throw them around, I think, pretty easily. we ultimately do want our patients, no matter what the recommendation is, to be compliant, right? And compliance has to do with a passive behavior where we give our patient a list, let's say, of instructions. Here's what I want you to do, go do them, right? Here's how many appointments I want you to make, go make them. And it's really just about the patient responding to that list that we give them with a set of instructions. Adherence becomes a little bit different in terms of this is a little bit more of a positive, proactive behavior on the patient, and it goes beyond just setting an appointment or taking a supplement or doing a home exercise. It really results in a lifestyle change. So ultimately, when you're thinking about all the patients you've had, let's say today or in the last week or month, how many of them are really compliant versus how many of them are really adhering to the lifestyle changes you would like them to adhere to? And if you can't answer that question saying, oh, 100% or close to 100%, then there's going to be some really good pearls in this conversation for you to start implementing. And this all comes down to the fact that we know our patients are walking in because they want help, right? They want our guidance. And the good news is that's the first barrier, right? They're already in the office. We know that they want our help. From that point forward, we certainly don't want to lose them where that adherence becomes, non-existent. So my question for you is, do you have the right tools in your tool bag? Right? If you have that black bag that you got, remember that black bag at school you had to buy? I can't even remember. It was probably a couple $100. Maybe it's less. I don't remember. And, we got our otoscope and our reflex hammer and we threw a couple tools in there, right? And we had all of this fun equipment as students that we were going to use as a doctor as we were learning throughout the class, our classes. My question to you actually goes beyond some of those tools, right? Versus the technique you have, the table you utilize, the lab work you might incorporate. Do you have the right tools as far as the appointment goes to walk a patient through the beginning of that appointment to actually getting them to adhere to that plan to change their life? So we need to understand the parts of the appointment. Well, what does that really mean, the parts of the appointment? There's going to be some very specific things I'm going to ask you if you do in your appointment with a patient, especially a new patient, or if there are parts that are missing that we have to figure out how to incorporate in when you meet that patient. So number one, who are you? This is really, really simple, and yet we take this for granted sometimes when we meet a new patient, is do you have that standard sentence of who you are? Hi, I'm Dr. Cindy Howard, and I am a chiropractic internist, and this is what I do in my practice. Do you have a set who you are? Now, I'll share with you a story as to why this is so important. Sometimes patients are coming in off of a referral basis, or let's say an ad that you're running, and they might miss the fact even that you're a chiropractic physician. Now, my background, just so those of you who don't know me, my background is I'm board certified nutrition and internal medicine. Here in the state of Illinois where I practice, within our scope of practice, we are allowed to utilize gynecology techniques, of which I do. So when a female comes into my office or a male, we do a breast exam and also including a genital exam. And on our female patients, we can do a PAP if warranted and the patient, is coming in for an annual exam. What was interesting is when I first started in practice, actually, it was only a couple months in, I had a referral from another patient who sent a young lady in to me for an annual examination. And I made the mistake of not introducing myself in the right way so that she understood that I was a doctor of chiropractic, board certified in internal medicine, which allows me to practice gynecology. And at the time, when I was submitting to insurance, the bill, of course, had gone to the insurance carrier, and the insurance carrier had kicked it out because it was under chiropractic versus under a medical procedure. And even though I was within my scope of practice and didn't do anything wrong, because that patient got denied the service, she was very upset with me, and to a certain degree, rightfully so, because she was under the impression she was seeing a medical doctor, not a doctor of chiropractic, because her girlfriend who referred her didn't tell her, and I didn't either. So I do think it's really important that we have a who we are when we meet our patients in the beginning so that we're very clear and they know exactly what it is that we do and what the degree is or the certifications that we hold. So I would challenge you to have an intro, right? Hello, I am, and it doesn't have to be an expert, right? Although you can say that if you want, or get that name tag put on your scrubs or your jacket or your shirts. But hello, I am, and be really confident in that one or two sentence that you might say to explain to patients exactly who you are by name and as well what you do. The second part of that is also to introduce yourself the way you want, right? I don't want patients coming into the office saying, hey, Cindy, how are you today? I am very clear that there are boundary issues, right? And I want to be addressed as doctor. So I introduce myself the way that I expect the patients to respond as well. Next step of that appointment after that introduction, which I also think is crucial in how it's going to go, is to set the tone for that appointment. How many of you out there, I'll raise my hand, right? How many of you out there have had trouble where the patient runs away with that appointment for you? They take total control and they're off talking about the dog and their vacation or what they want to do tomorrow and not addressing the main concern or chief complaint that they came in for. Or how many just have no idea what types of information they should be sharing with you on that appointment so that you can be concise and make sure you get what you need. So I always recommend that you sit down and explain to the patient exactly what's going to happen. Mr. Smith, today we are going to sit down and what I want to do is take a thorough history as to how you got injured. I want you to give me all of the relevant details that you think are important to that injury. I'm also going to ask you some questions about that, and we're going to review some past history as well. And then at that point, when I feel that I've gotten all the information I've needed and you've shared all the information that you think is relevant and important, then at that point, I'm going to share with you how I feel I can best help you. And then we're going to make a decision together how to move forward. Does that sound okay? And it's like getting that patient's permission to move through how you want that appointment to be. Now, again, your appointment may run very differently than mine or my suggestion here, but you want to set that tone. And when the patient knows what's going to happen in that appointment, they know exactly what to expect. It also eliminates any fear of the unknown. So like, for example, let's say you are going to perform a orthopedic exam on your patient, right? It's nice to let them know we're going to take a thorough history today. Then we're going to step into the other room. We're going to go ahead and do an orthopedic examination, which means, and you can go into a short explanation. And then at that point, I will be able to determine what it is I think is the underlying cause of the pain that you are having. And we will formulate a treatment plan. This way, the patient knows exactly how you're going to move through your appointment. Again, it's also to identify yourself correctly so that hello, I am statement can be part of setting the tone. It also allows you both to stay focused. You as the physician, right, to follow through what you said you were going to do in order to use your time efficiently that you have in that appointment. And also for the patient to stay focused on what you need from them or want from them. And then also to manage your time efficiently. Again, kind of show of hands, right, that I can't see out there, but how many people have ran over? How many of you have your staff knocking on the door, doc, next patient is waiting? How many of you feel like you actually really needed more time with that patient? And by setting the tone, this allows us to manage that time within that allotted schedule to stay on track and accomplish what you need to best help the patient. Next step, right? Now what do? We need to hunt and gather. We need to get all of the information that we absolutely need, right? Whether it's for that current visit or future visits or to generate a plan. So you are going to hunt and gather. And one of the ways I'm going to challenge you to do that is to make sure that you have adequate paperwork to help you, right? And this sounds a little remedial, but one of the things I love is making sure that your paperwork reflects as much as you need to get from the patient that can also help narrow down how you're going to focus in the appointment. And at the same time, also know that you don't want to completely overwhelm the patient. So, should a questionnaire be 5 questions? Well, probably not, right? Because we're probably going to need a lot more information that we can then expand on, but we don't need to take the time to do in the appointment. But we also don't necessarily want a 48-page examination form that they fill out or history form either, because then that compliance of following the instructions to do that may fall off. So take into consideration that If your history forms are pretty short and you don't feel you're getting enough information to start a good visit, you may want to expand. And if your patients are complaining or not filling out all of the paperwork, make sure that it's not also too lengthy that you're turning some patients off for information that may or may not be essential when they walk through the door. So now let's move into the scary part of this. And I say scary because I'm going to tell you where all of you who are listening, I know, are amazing healthcare providers, right? We're fantastic. All of us are. We're very confident in our abilities to take care of our patients. But did you also know that you're also a salesperson? And I know some of you are going, oh, did she just say salesperson? Right? And some of you are probably now clicking off or going, oh, I'm not in sales. I don't want to be in sales. I'm a chiropractic physician. That's all I wanted to be when I grow up. But I'm going to challenge you to look at things differently, because at the end of the day, if there is a service, a treatment plan, a supplement, a program, anything in your office that somebody is giving you money for, you are in sales. You have sold something, a service, a product, a treatment plan, yourself, healthcare. Right? So I want us to start to think about sales as not a dirty word or a scary word, but a very necessary part of what we do. So let's look at the doctor or the clinician, right? We have a code of professional conduct, and we are taking a very individualized approach to taking care of that patient based on our knowledge, right? Our chiropractic knowledge in order to get people well. That's what we do every day. But at the same time, we want a doctor that's really charismatic, right? We want good bedside manner. We may have to do some negotiating with that patient, right? Whether it's based on fitting things into their schedule, whether they're willing to do the work at home, whether they're willing to take the supplement recommendations or change diet or drink more water, right? There may be a little discussion in there to find that comfort spot. We also know that we need to make money. Right? I highly doubt that any of us would be really comfortable continuing in this profession if we made zero money, right? And it is not a dirty thing to run a very successful business and make a very nice living doing what you're doing, as long as you're doing it ethically, right? And morally correct. So we're going to increase our revenue when we take better care of our patients. And we also are going to work on having some scripts or programs in order to show patients how to get the outcomes that they want. And if you look at those items, that's what a salesperson does. So again, you're going to give me about another 40 minutes here, and I am going to try to turn you into the best chiropractic salesperson very quickly without it feeling pitchy or relatively uncomfortable as you move forward. We can teach communication. I think that the majority of all relationships, marriages, partners, friends, family member, doctor, patient, doctor, staff, all succeeds when we have excellent and outstanding communication skills. And we know there's even studies that talk about how we can take doctors and we can actually teach them how to talk to patients to have much better incomes, much better income. The patients might have a much better income too. You can have a much better income, but how they can have much better outcomes and be more successful when that communication piece is in place. We also know that healthcare costs go down, and quite frankly, we feel more useful and helpful to our patients when we know those outcomes are improved because we have good communication skills, okay? This also prevents any sort of trouble from a financial realm, right? When we're transparent with the patients, they know up front. It prevents any sort of misunderstanding as far as how often they should be seen or what they should do. It also helps with outcomes in terms of what to expect from our care, right? So that communication piece is going to be absolutely essential. Now, when we're hunting and gathering, right, one of the key things, and we were always taught this in school, I remember this distinctly, is to be quiet. So what we want to do is we want to let the patient talk. And again, we've given them that guided direction of saying, here's what we need to hear from you, right? But once we've given that instruction, we want them to just go a little bit. I want to listen to the patient. And they're going to give me two very valuable pieces of information that I'm listening for. One, of course, is what's wrong, right? So we have the injury or the concern, we have the mechanism of injury or concern, and we have all of the background on that. But we also want to listen for what might potentially be very important to that patient besides just, let's say, not getting sick during this season, not having back pain any further. And what I mean by that is listening to some of those personal things, like maybe they're not functioning well at work because they can't focus. Maybe they can't get off the floor with their grandkids as well anymore because their back is absolutely, driving them crazy. Maybe they're a truck driver and because their neck is so sore, right, they're having trouble with that rotation and it's affecting their line of work and therefore they've had to take days off. Listen for some of those triggers outside of just the pain or the concern, because you're going to bring that back around to show them value, which I'm going to teach you in just a minute. So just listen and let them go. We have to uncover then the patient's needs and wants. So when I mentioned a few minutes ago, you're going to become a salesperson, any book you pick up, Sales 101, and they're all very similar, they're going to teach you the exact same skill set using different chapter names and different examples. And one of the things we need to do is we have to uncover both the need and the want of the patient. And sometimes that's not exactly what our need and our want is. So make sure, and if you have to, you can clarify by asking them, if I understand you correctly, you would like to get out of pain, correct? And the reason for that is you want to be able, right, to play with the kids in the park without feeling like you can't climb on the equipment or swing on the swing, correct? Oh, yes, Dr. Cindy, that would be so amazing. Awesome. Okay, so uncovering the patient's needs and wants. Now, at the end of them talking, if you're not sure, ask them what they're looking to accomplish here, right? You've obviously made the appointment to come in today, Mr. Smith. Please share with me, what is it you hope to get out of today's visit and care in my office? And just ask that question and make a really good mental note. And for those of us that can't remember things well, make sure you write it down, because you're going to come back to that when you're talking to the patient later in that appointment. Now we have to meet the need. So if a patient comes to us with something and we have the tool set, right? We have the modality, the therapy, the kindness, the education, the home care, whatever it is. If we have that, we now have to show them how we're going to meet that need, right? So you have an injury. Here's what we can do in order to help you recover from that injury. You are tired all the time. Here's what we can give you or test for in order to figure out why you are fatigued in order to override that and get you the energy that you want, right? So we take that need or that want from the patient, and then we have to explain to them how we're going to meet it. Now, I don't care how detailed or complicated you want to get in your office. I'm a big fan of keeping it simple so that we don't lose patients. There's actually some really interesting studies done that when you read a book and you come across a word that you don't know what the meaning is, if you don't stop to look up that word, the next various amounts of sentences following that word, you actually don't comprehend, and then you lose track where you are in that story in the book. And I don't know if any of you have ever done that, even in some of the medical journals or anything else you've read. If you've noticed that when you come across a word you don't know, all of a sudden you lose focus. Well, patients are no different in the office. If we start to use medical terms that we don't explain, or they don't know what they mean, or we get real complicated in our explanations. And again, I'm not here to talk you out of that, but what I'm here to encourage you to do is, if you utilize something a little bit outside of that, like keep it simple, stupid, and I'm not trying to be demeaning, but that keep it simple, stupid, like routine, right? Make sure that you are explaining what those things mean so that you don't lose the patient with the real underlying message, which is, here's what we're going to do in order to accomplish what you're asking for. Okay, so meet the need. Now, for those of you that don't read anything by Simon Sinek, I'm going to highly recommend that you Google him and download a book or buy a hardcover book if you actually like the hardcover books like I do. But I want you to search him out a little bit, because he does some amazing work on what he calls the why. And this is also important for meeting the need. So let's back up a second. when we look at this circle, this golden circle that Simon talks about, the outer circle is the what we do, or what do you do? Well, what do you do? Well, I'm a chiropractic physician, right? So I perform manipulation. I treat low back pain. I perform physical therapy. I do acupuncture. I incorporate nutrition. That is the what. And that is usually a really easy question for us all to answer, right? We're very confident in the what we do. The second part of that is equally important, and that is the how do we do what we do, right? The how is, well, we order lab work in order to determine the nutritional deficiencies so that we know what supplements to put you on. We put you through an orthopedic and neurological evaluation so that we can figure out the underlying cause of your low back pain in order to fix that and get you well, right? Those are the hows. And most of us are actually really good at that too, because we do it every single day. The part that I find when we sit and we evaluate patients' appointments with some of the doctors we work with is we're not real good at the why we do. And this is Simon's purpose, is to get everybody to understand the why, which is the purpose. So really at the end of the day, why does your patient want to get out of pain? Why is it so important for you to help them? Why does your patient want to work on their immune system? Because we're so worried about what's going on in the world, we don't want to get sick. Why is it important for you as a physician to help them with that? And when you incorporate the why into that spiel, if you will, now that's going to increase the value, it's going to build trust, and it's also going to increase the rapport you have with the patient, okay? Why? You know what? I am a mom of 3 kids, and I know how important it is to be able to get on the floor and play with them. My boys are now older, and wrestling with them is not so easy anymore because they're much stronger than I am. But when they were little, right, it was really important for me to be able to engage in the physical activities, especially with 2 boys. If I was going to walk through their childhood in pain, my why would have been, right, so that I could get on the floor and wrestle with those kids. It's more important even than the pain itself for a lot of patients. So really think about, are you incorporating the why? And this is where listening to that patient to find some of those hot buttons that are important to them in their lifestyle is where you can bring that back to them in that patient visit. It's not just what you do, but why you do it. Okay. Take a little snapshot of this, put it on a sticky note next to your notes that you take on your laptop or handwritten notes, whatever you guys are still doing, and put it there so that you remember it's the why that's going to be really important. And when patients also see your passion, right, which is about your why, they're going to feel that trust and they're going to build that loyalty as well. When they understand the why, there's a couple things. I just mentioned the loyalty, right? It also helps with understanding. We want the patients to understand why it's so important. How many of you have told patients to go home and do exercises 3 times a day, 2 times a day, 3 times a week, right? We all have. And how many of them actually come back saying they did it? Well, for those of you where you have good patient compliance and adherence, both, right? They did what you told them to do, and then they changed their lifestyle to incorporate that long term. Did they actually understand the why behind it? Or was it because you just told them to go home and do some exercises that they might have done it 3 or 4 times and then they fell off? So play with that, use that why, and see if you can increase that adherence to where they're doing the home exercises a little bit more. Value, success, greater health, certainly increased income, right? All of these different aspects of your business will change when that why is brought in. Here's what I would suggest. When you're creating some sort of script and you're going through your treatment protocol, I recommend that we do X, Y, and Z. Here's your plan, right? And this is why. Because. And finish your sentence with a this is why, and that should really be like a ... right? So that you can continue to increase that value and you don't forget that as well when you're creating those treatment plans with your patients. This is also good on those repeat visits, right? When you revisit some of those things you want those patients to be consistent on, or even then if you're eliciting a change. Dr. Smith, you like how I just made my patient a doctor? Mr. Smith. They're all doctors at the end of the day, right? Because they know as much as we do when they come back in. So Mr. Smith, we're going to change up the treatment protocol today. And this is why. And then give the explanation, right? Versus just a matter of fact what? We incorporate the why. Make it simple but significant. This doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be a 30-minute dissertation as to why we're doing some of the things that we're doing. If you can find that one significant thing that will hit home with the patient, that's all you need to do. It can be as simple as 1 or 2 sentences. Define the quality, demonstrate your value, and build trust. And that's what we're really trying to do with this. If we don't provide a quality service, we're not going to get anywhere. If the patient doesn't understand the value for the service we're providing, we're not going to get anywhere. And ultimately, at the end of the day, if they don't trust us, they are not going to adhere, and they will not return, and they will not refer future patients. This is a perfect example of that, especially in care and the appointment. We want to explain to patients why quality is so important. Let's say I was going to go become a rock climber. I'm going to stop at my local Home Depot. I don't mean to throw them under the bus. They sell good quality products, right? But in this case, if I was going to buy some rope in order to start rock climbing, I have the availability of these ropes here. Let's see, under $10. That might not be bad. It's pretty inexpensive sport, right? So we all know that sometimes too, when we're creating the why for patients, we need to incorporate that value, because sometimes the pushback will be financial. But here's the thing. If I was going to rock climb, don't you think that I might want to look at that bigger price tag, because these are actually ropes specifically designed for rock climbing. And I don't know about all of you, but when I'm hanging from that rock, I want to make sure that I have something sturdy and that I can count on. So one of the challenges that I see again with a lot of practitioners comes down to that financial component of things. And if we just say to the patient, look, we can do this and it can be $15, or we can do this and it can be $72, I recommend the $72 visit. There's not a whole lot of value there. But if we can explain why the $72 treatment is going to get them to their end result better and help them accomplish not only their what, but their why, they're going to pay that $208 for the rope versus the under $10 one, because they don't want to risk the fact that they can't accomplish their goals. So make sure as you go through your appointment too, you're not compromising on your quality for the sake of getting them to do something faster when it may not be necessary. So here's the deal. You guys have to start working on some scripting. And this is where this is going to get a little uncomfortable for some of you, because this is kind of that salesy part of like, we have a script that we use in order to walk through the appointment. How many of you have given your front desk staff a script to answer the phone? Thank you for calling Innovative Health and Wellness Center. This is Cindy. How may I help you today? Right? There's a standard script that we ask our staff a lot of times to follow depending on what we're asking them to do. As a doctor, it's really no different with some flexibility. So I'm going to encourage you, write down your hello, I am, right? Your opening statement, how you want to introduce yourself to patients. Script out your detail as far as how you want to guide that appointment. Today, Mr. Jones, here's what we want to accomplish in today's visit. Here's what I would like to do in order to achieve the right outcome. Come up with that little bit of scripting. And then when it comes time to actually make your recommendations, you're going to have a little bit of a format too in terms of the, here's what we're going to do, here's how we're going to do it, and here's why we're going to do it. And when you have those scripts written out and you become comfortable with them, you'll see that they'll just start to roll off your tongue. They won't feel pitchy. They won't feel like you're reading off of a piece of paper, but we need to start there, right? And it comes back to how we answered the phone. The first couple times may be a little awkward because we're not used to how we answer the phone. Now we just pick up the phone and we know the exact verbiage, and it feels very natural when we do that with patients. So start to work on the scripting a little bit for yourselves and be consistent. Use it over and over and over again. We see studies showing too that when we're consistent, that actually will also increase patient outcome and patient satisfaction. This doesn't mean it's a one-size-fits-all for everybody. It just means that we have an outline, if you will, that we can utilize as we move forward. When you're scripting, it builds rapport. It also helps you have a very clear impact, and we always want to be very clear with our patients. We also can sort of generate this laundry list of descriptions and explanations that build trust. I love using analogies, right? Like if I have somebody who comes into my practice and let's say they're a mechanic or they love cars, I'd love to use car analogies, right? And how I would get that patient better. So having some of those kind of stories, if you will, in your arsenal as well, using descriptions and explanations, that'll help build trust with patients. Plus, it also helps them to understand what you're trying to accomplish. And at the end of the day, the scripting is just a plan to help you succeed through those appointments. Here's something really important too. When we walk through with a patient, we need to do two things. One is we're selling, in a sense, right, again, what they want, but we also need to give them what they need. So let's say a patient comes in and says, well, I would like to just get adjusted once and I want you to get rid of my back pain. That might not be realistic, right? So by taking all of these steps, we can give them what they want in terms of the adjustment, but we also might need to say, you know what, in order for us to accomplish your goals, we might need to do this a little bit more often. So I would like to see you X amount of times per week. And I know that my patients have gotten better when I incorporate this physical therapy modality and a couple home exercises. So in order to give you what you want, right, we're going to also give them what they need. So don't be afraid to make those recommendations both ways. And you can explain that very easily from them or to them, right, by finding out again, what is it you hope to accomplish, and then giving them the what and the why you're offering those things in order to accomplish that. Now, here's my favorite part of actually walking through an appointment. When I have worked one-on-one with some of the doctors, I love to do two things. One is I will sit in a patient appointment as a guest doctor and listen to what they do, but I also role play, and I'll have you walk me through an entire appointment as if I'm a brand new patient. And at the very end, when you give me all of your recommendations, I just sit there and I stare at you. And that's very uncomfortable for a lot of doctors, right? Because the response, what I see for some of us, is that we just hope the patient's going to jump up and down and go, I'm in, schedule me for all my appointments, give me all my supplements, I'm ready. And some patients do that, right? And those are fun, right? Because you know they're in, they're super excited, and they're super committed. And sometimes you'll just have those patients that just kind of stare at you, not sure what to do. And one of the downfalls that we have walking through an appointment is some of us never actually ask for the commitment for the patient. Mr. Smith, are you ready to get started? Mr. Smith, may I book you out for those appointments? Mr. Smith, may I show you our physical therapy room? This is where you're going to have the treatments when you come in twice a week. Mr. Smith, may we get started today? Right? If we don't ask for that verbal commitment for the patient to say yes, we don't know if we really have them on board. And here's the greatest thing. When the patient now looks at you like this, after you ask if they're ready to get started, we now have an amazing opportunity to overcome any obstacles, because sometimes they're confused, or sometimes they don't have buy-in, or sometimes they don't even understand what we're talking about, right? So when we get this kind of look, or the crossed arms, right? You all know those patients that sit kind of, you know, in the chair with the crossed arms showing resistance, right? Body language that they don't have buy-in with us yet. This gives us that opportunity to overcome some of those objections and those obstacles that we face. So if there's resistance, we have to move them to this new level of engagement, right? We have to get them to say yes. So what are their objections? You know what? I travel all the time, Dr. Cindy. There is no way I can come in 3 times a week. I'm only in town like every 2 weeks, right? Did we not uncover that in the visit so that we could overcome that objection, right? You know what, Dr. Cindy, I just flat out cannot afford this treatment plan that you are laying out for me. That's my favorite one. I love the can't afford one, right? And I'm going to give you a little secret to that one in a second. But what happens is when we have that opportunity, we now know what the objections and the barriers are, and now we can communicate again to try to overcome those, right? So you know what, Mr. Jones, I get that you're traveling all the time. I have a couple ideas for you. You know, certainly we can set up care when you're in town. What would it look like if we had a chiropractic physician in the town you're traveling to, and we actually were able to co-treat you when you're in town here, we see you, and when you're out of town? Would something like that work for you? Oh my God, that would be amazing. Now, make sure, of course, that's in a city you probably have a great referral. Or, you know what, Mr. Smith, I totally appreciate that you're going to be traveling. What if there was a way for us to give you a really great exercise protocol? Is that something you could do while you were traveling, so that in between visits, we could probably move that care along a little bit further? Oh, Dr. Cindy, that would be wonderful. I would do that. You know what, Dr. Cindy, I just can't afford your care. No problem. Little secret here. Most people can afford your care. They're probably choosing not to because they don't see the value yet. you know what, Mr. Jones, I appreciate that, and I certainly want to spend your money wisely. What can you afford? Would you provide me a budget that I could work within, and I will structure the treatment plan around that budget? I love coming back with that one, because a lot of times if there's a true financial restraint and they give you a dollar amount, then we just adjust. And sometimes we do have to change our protocols and our recommendations based on some of those objections, but use those to actually turn your yes into a no. And I want you to get, don't you love this? This chicken is in the salad. Like, this is a chicken that I think got stuck in some sort of carton, right? And as much as it makes me sad to see this picture, it was a great description of this whole idea of, especially as doctors, sometimes we have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. So when that patient gives us an objection, it's not a like, oh, okay, no big deal, so I guess we can't do the care that we were planning. It's an opportunity for us to negotiate, right? Restructure, recommunicate in order to reformulate that plan or get that patient on board to the original plan. Okay, so get comfortable, you guys, being uncomfortable. Turn that no into a yes. And at the end of the day, have a backup plan. I'll share with you another story. I was working with a young doctor, one of my favorite people in the city. I was listening to her. We sat in the office together all day as she was going through patients. And she says to me, I want to run something past you. I had a patient the other day, and I know that she really needed a very good workup with laboratory work. And I laid out the whole plan and all the different tests that I wanted to run. And she left the office without doing anything. And then she called me back and she said, you know what, doc, I just can't do this. So I'm going to just wait, and maybe I'll save a little money, and I'll call you back when I'm ready. And I said to her, I said, well, did you have a plan B? Like, if this just didn't work for her? And she said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, in listening to you, you know, everything that you shared with me that this patient is experiencing, acupuncture works really nicely for too. She said, yeah, it does. I said, and you know what? There might have even been a couple supplements that you could have started her on to decrease her inflammatory load even before starting treatment. Did you even offer up a couple supplements? And she said, no, I really didn't. And I said, okay, so let's talk about two things. One is if the patient walks out of your office after asking for help without doing anything, that is your fault, not the patient's fault. Meaning, you did not uncover a big enough need, meet the need with the why, and explain how you can help to create value. Because at the end of the day, they were coming in for help. And to a certain degree, they didn't get any. Now, if they didn't want to do the lab tests, they really truly couldn't afford or chose not to afford the lab test, or for whatever reason, that plan wasn't okay with them, maybe by offering a game plan B, C, or D to just gain their trust, see a little bit of change, would have at least given them a plan, right? And the opportunity to continue working with you to eventually follow through on the things you need. So please make sure you have a backup plan that can work for the patient if you truly cannot overcome that objection. I love this statement. If they act like they can live without you, help them do that. And I think originally that was really meant like, get rid of them, right? Like, okay, so they don't need us and get rid of them. But I love this statement from the standpoint of reincorporating the value of saying, if you really can live without my treatment plan, why'd you come in, right? You're not feeling good. So I'm going to tell you to change that around and say, help them live without you by getting them well. All right. And this is my mantra in terms of, at the end of the day, I would love for all my patients not to have to come in, right? But to choose to come in, whether it's for maintenance type adjustments, a really good annual examination, maybe some good blood work, right? To make sure that they're on the right track, whatever it is that we utilize in practice. We want those patients to continue to not theoretically, right, need help from a problem, but to move into that preventative maintenance stage where we keep them well, right, and help them live that way. We want to provide confident direction. This is another part of our appointments that I think are really important, right? Let them know how we're going to move forward. What is the next appointment going to look like? What are they going to expect in the next appointment? What do we want them to do in the meantime? What do we want them to do when they come in? So many times we have patients where we say, okay, I know I'm supposed to set up that appointment, but what was I coming in for? How long am I supposed to be coming in for them? How much time do I even need when I come back in the office? So give that patient that confident direction in order to move forward through the future appointments as well. All of that, what to expect, is huge. we should be able to go back to that patient. Remember, I made that little slip and I called the patient doctor, right? Dr. Jones or Dr. Smith, almost like they could answer that question. I know what I need to do. I know when I should do it. I know what I'm going to do when I show up for that appointment, right? We want that patient to be so well versed on what to expect, they could answer those questions if we turn around and ask them. What is the future plan? Is it maintenance care? Are they a patient that is going to probably need to come in once a month, right, for a long period of time based on their pathology, based on their profession, right? We have dental hygienists. I have quite a few dental hygienists that come in, right? They're in a horrible position. They work one-sided. They're bent over a patient, right? These are patients that become lifelong maintenance type patients. So is that sort of their future plan, right? And not that we don't want any patient really to completely disappear, right? We all know the value of good maintenance care. But at the end of the day, what is the future for that particular patient so that they know that expectation? I love laying that out for them. Again, changing along the way as we need to, but just so they know that expectation. Also, what will all the pieces look like when it comes together? Do you expect them to make a full recovery? Might that full recovery take a long time? Do you expect it to be short? If it's not short, did you lay out for them what you're going to do if it doesn't work the way you want? One of the biggest failures we see in that regard, too, is the doctor that just says, you know what, we want to see you for 12 visits. And it's kind of just left there, right? We want to see you for 12 visits because we expect a 50% reduction in your pain, an increased range of movement at 70%. If we find that you've hit those milestones, great, we're going to continue on the path beyond that. Here's what it looks like. If you don't hit those milestones, here's what we're going to do then as a result of you not hitting those milestones. But please know, we still can affect what we're doing to get you to that maximum medical improvement. What is it going to look like? What should that patient expect? Full recovery, partial recovery, slow, fast? Important to let them know that too. And then there's that guided improvement, okay? We want to make sure that we're continuously reinforcing the goals because the goals also may change. Right? And what if they change? Are we still meeting those needs with the right what, how, and why? We want to measure progress. We all know, right? The reevaluation, whatever that is, whether it's neurological, orthopedic, lab work, communication, and provide that positive encouragement. You're doing a great job. Whether it's exceeding the expectations or not quite the expectations, it's still that positive encouragement and reminding them why we are doing the things that we are doing. All right, let's review a few things. The parts of the appointment, the tools in your tool bag, what you actually need to do from the beginning to the end, right? After that introduction, number one, listen to the needs of the patients. What do they want to accomplish? What are they hoping to get better? And ask them if you don't know. Explain how and why you will meet their needs. At the end of that, educate and ask permission to treat. Get that verbal yes, all right? And some of you are having them sign. That's okay too, but I like that verbal yes before you even walk into, let's say if you have a contract with the patient, walk into that verbal yes first. Overcome any objections, financial, time, I don't want to swallow pills, I'm terrified to have you adjust me. Whatever the objection is, this is your time to overcome those, to build that trust and show them the quality of the care that you can provide and the fact that you can get them well. And at the very end, walk out of your appointment and ask yourself, what could I have done differently to produce a more successful result? If that patient walks out of your room at any point and does not comply to increase adherence, I'm going to challenge you to say it is something you are doing in that appointment that could have been done better in order to get that outcome. So just as much as you want your patients to be well and that's their outcome, your outcome is for them to follow your recommendation, communicate well in order to adjust what we need to adjust, and adhere to a very healthy lifestyle in order to keep them well. Okay. So today, if you're going back into practice this afternoon, when you're done with your appointment, see if you met some of those steps. Tomorrow, evaluate it again and jot down some notes to yourself where you think maybe you could have improved that. Work on the scripting and let me know if that's something that I can do in order to best help you. Success and failure. If you're not doing all of these things, if the patient didn't follow through, if the patient didn't adhere to care, you know what? It's okay. Failure is a way for you to evaluate and analyze what you're doing, right? In your practice, in your appointment, one-on-one. Use those failures to develop that skill set so that you actually work on your brilliance. we're going to get compliance, we're going to get adherence, and you are going to be the most brilliant doctor that they cannot live without. And they are going to refer all of their friends and family members to you when they get all of that in each and every single appointment. Here is my personal information. Again, you have my phone number, you have my email. I want to thank you. If there is something that I can do to help you on the consulting front, we do one-on-one. I shouldn't say we, it's just me, you get me. I do one-on-one. Communication is my niche. Evaluating the patient appointment is my niche. Special offer. I know a lot of you will be watching this at some point in time. If you mention that you watched this on the Chiro USA platform, and again, thank you, Christy, for having me today. I would like to offer there's no official coupon, you just have to let me know, but it gives you $100 off per hour on the consulting fee. Reach out to me, let me know. If it's something I can help with, I will tell you. If it's not within my wheelhouse, I will tell you that as well. We'll work through the what, the how, and the why in order to achieve what you want to do to take your practice one step further. You got my info. You guys have a great, wonderful afternoon. Again, come visit us at future seminars. I hope Christy will have me back at some point in time. This was great. You guys, go out, heal the world, enjoy yourself. And again, thank you so much for being with me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cindy. And we don't have any questions, but I did post your contact information in the chat box. Just a reminder that our next webinar will not take place until June the 8th. And it's the role your sleeping position makes on the health of your spine with Dr. Peter Martone. So we'll pick that up on June the 8th at 2:15 p.m. Eastern time. And we look forward to seeing you then. I hope you all have a safe and happy holiday weekend. Get some rest before you jump back into practice. Make miracles happen in your communities. And I will see you then. Bye, y'all.